Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Miss Roni Reads. Today, I have a recommendation from Mrs. S. This book is called Poisoned. Let's read the blurb. I wonder if you recognize anything from the front cover. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the deadliest of them all? That's a bit of a twist. Break the enchanted mirror, crush the poisoned apple, seize your own happily ever after. Once upon a time, a girl named Sophie rode into the forest with the Queen's huntsman. Her lips were the colour of ripe cherries, her skin as soft as new-fallen snow, her hair as dark as midnight. When they stopped to rest, the huntsman pulled out his knife and took Sophie's heart. It shouldn't have come as a surprise. Sophie had heard the rumours. They said she was too kind and foolish to rule, a disaster of a future queen, and Sophie believed them. She believed everything she'd heard about herself, the poisonous words people use to keep girls like Sophie from becoming too powerful, too strong. With the help of 7 mysterious strangers, Sophie manages to survive, but she must find the courage to face an enemy even more terrifying than the brutal queen and prove that the darkest magic can't extinguish the fire burning inside every girl, and that kindness is the ultimate form of strength. Oh, that sounds like my kind of book. I'm so excited. Let's read chapter 1. Oh, it's a prologue. Prologue. Once upon long ago, always and evermore, a girl rode into the dark wood. Her lips were the colour of ripe cherries, her skin as soft as new-fallen snow, her hair as dark as midnight. The tall pines whispered and sighed as she passed under them, the Queen's huntsman at her side. Crows perched high in the branches blinked their bright black eyes. As the sky lightened, the huntsman pointed to a pond ahead and told the girl that they must dismount to let the horses drink. She did so, walking side by side with him. Lost in her thoughts, she did not hear the soft hiss of a dagger leaving its sheath. She did not see the huntsman lift his face to the dawn, or glimpse the anguish in his eyes. A gasp of shock escaped the girl as the huntsman pulled her close, his broad hand spanning her narrow back. Her eyes, wide and questioning, sought his. She was not afraid, not yet. She felt almost nothing as he slid the blade between her ribs, just a slight, soft push, and then a bloom of warmth, as if she'd spilled tea down her dress. But the pain came, red, clawed, and snarling. The girl threw her head back and screamed. A stag bolted from the brush with the sound. The crows burst from their roosts, their wings beating madly. The huntsman was skilled. He was quick. He had gutted 1,000 deer, a few expert cuts with a knife so sharp it could slice blue from the sky, and the delicate ribs were cleaved, the flesh and veins severed. The girl's head lolled back. Her legs gave out. Gently the huntsman lowered her to the ground, then knelt beside her. "Forgive me, dear princess, forgive me," he begged. "This foul deed was not my wish, but the Queen's command." "Why?" the girl cried with her dying breath. But the huntsman, tears in his eyes, could not speak. He finished his grim task and got to his feet. As he did, the girl got her answer, for the last thing she saw before her eyes closed was her heart, small and perfect, in the huntsman's trembling hands. In the forest the birds have gone silent, the creatures are still. Gloom lingers under the trees, and on the cold ground a girl lies dying, a ragged red hole where her heart used to be. "Hang the huntsman!" you shout. "Burn the evil queen, and who will fault you?" But you've missed the real villain. It's easily done. He's stealthy and sly and comes when you're alone. He stands in the shadows and whispers his poison. His words drip, drip, drip into the small secret chambers of your heart. You think you know this tale, but you only know what you've been told. Who are you? How do you know these things? You ask. Fair questions, both. I am the huntsman. Dead now, but that's no matter. The dead speak, with tongues blackened by time and regret. You can hear us if you listen. You will say that I'm telling you tales, fairy stories, that it's all make-believe. But there are more things afoot in the dark wood than you can imagine, and only a fool would call them make-believe. Keep to the path, the old wives say. Stay out of the forest. But one day you will have to walk deep into those dark woods and find what's waiting there. For if you do not, it will surely find you. 1. The day before. Tally-ho! Shouted the queen, spurring her fierce courser on. The hounds had flushed their quarry. A grey wolf broke from the cover of a blackbriar patch and ran for the deep woods. The pack swept after it, baying for blood. The bravest members of the hunting party followed the queen, galloping hard to keep up with her, but the princess, riding a swift, nimble palfrey, boldly streaked past her. She chased the wolf at breakneck speed, weaving in and out of the trees, her skirts billowing behind her. She jumped a stone wall, a stream, a tangle of brush so high there was no telling what lay beyond it. Her hat came off, her black hair unfurled like ribbons of night. The queen couldn't catch her, nor could the princes, Hancon and Rodrigo. I saw them flashing through the woods, the queen in white, her nobles in rich hues of russet, moss, and ochre. I saw a baron crouched low over his horse's neck, his hands high up in the animal's mane. He narrowed the distance between himself and the queen, but just as he was about to pass her, his horse stumbled. The baron lost his balance. There was a cry, then a sickening crack as he hit the ground. "Leave him, huntsman!" the queen shouted. "Leave anyone who falls!" The man lay crumpled under a tree, his eyes closed, his head bloodied. I thundered past him. The rest of the riders did too. Only the princess cast a look back. We trailed the hounds, navigating this by their cries, swerving through the woods as they changed direction. I lost sight of the queen as she rode through a pocket of mist, then found her again some moments later with a pack. And the princess. The hounds had surrounded the wolf. The creature was huge and fearsome. It had killed 2 dogs already. Their broken bodies lay nearby. And him? Oh, yes, he was there too. He was always close by, watching, waiting. I heard him in the wolf's low growl, felt him in the nervous stamping of the horses. I saw him rise from the depths of the princess's eyes like a corpse bobbing up in a river. And then, without warning, the wolf charged the horses, snarling. The palfrey whinnied and reared, but the princess kept her seat. The courser's nostrils flared, he flattened his ears, but he stood his ground as the queen jumped down from her saddle. Circling the fray, she shouted at the hounds, exhorting him to attack. He did, barking and slavering, snapping at their prey's haunches. The wolf rounded on them, but it was one against many. The hounds knew it and grew bolder, but one, small and slight, hung back from the pack. The queen saw it, her eyes darkened. "Fight, you coward!" she shouted. The hound tucked its tail and retreated. Furious, the queen snatched a whip out of a groom's hand and started after the dog. "Your Grace, the wolf is escaping!" It was Prince Hakon. He just caught up to the pack. The queen threw the whip down and ran to her horse, but by the time she'd swung back into her saddle, the pack and the princess was already gone in hot pursuit once more. For a long and treacherous mile, the princess pursued the wolf until a ravine brought them to up short. She stopped her horse a few yards from the edge, but the wolf ran right to it. When it saw the sheer drop, it tried to backtrack, but the hounds closed in from the left. A tangle of blackbriar, a good 10 feet high, ran from the woods to the edge of the ravine, creating a wall on the right. The frantic animal paced back and forth, tensed itself to jump across the chasm, but saw that it was hopeless. Shoulders high, head low, it turned and readied itself for its last fight. The princess had moved closer. She could see the scruff of white at the animal's throat now, the ragged edge of one ear. The wolf looked up at her and she saw the fear in its silvery eyes. In a heartbeat, she was out of her saddle, striding among the frenzied hounds. She drove them back, yelling at them, stamping them away until she'd created an opening for the wolf. "Go! Get out of here!" she shouted at the creature. The wolf spied a small opening at the bottom of the blackbriar. The thorns were curved and cruel. They carved stripes in the desperate creature's snout and tore at its ears, but it pushed under the dense vines and disappeared. The hounds rushed after it, but their snouts were tender, their hides thin. They could not break through. The princess thought she was alone. She thought that no one saw this, but I did. I'd caught up to her but stayed hidden. I hunted many things for the queen, not all of them wolves. I saw the princess lean her head into her horse's lathered neck. I saw a deep weariness settle on her shoulders like a shroud. I saw her press a hand to her chest as if to soothe a fierce ache under her ribs. How it cost her, this charade. How it would cost us all. Hoofbeats sounded in the distance. Shouts echoed. By the time the queen drew up with Hakon and a few other riders, the princess's back was straight again, her weariness buried. I'm afraid our sport is over, stepmother, she said with feigned regret, nodding at the ravine. The wolf chose a quicker death. The queen rode to the edge and looked over it, frowning. What a pity, she said, that we are robbed of our kill. Her eyes travelled to the hounds, then to the Blackbriar. Her gaze sharpened. The princess did not see what had caught the queen's attention, for she was climbing back into her saddle, but I did. Snagged in the thorns was a tuft of fur, grey fur, wolf's fur. The queen's frown hardened. Blow for home, huntsman, she commanded. I sounded my trumpet, and the hounds set off, noses skimming the ground. The small, frightened one, her tail still between her legs, skittered along the edge of the pack. The riders followed, chatting and laughing. As the hoofbeats faded from the clearing, there was a dry, rustling sound, like the whispering of silk skirts. I looked up and saw a crow, blue-black and shrewd, drop down from the high branch where he'd been perched. He let out a shrill caw, then flew off into the dark wood. I could hear his call still echoing down the centuries. It sounded like a warning. It sounded like a death knell. It sounded, most of all, like laughter. Oh my goodness. So the queen obviously realizes what happens. I wonder if that's what happens if the princess is the girl who dies in the prologue. Oh my goodness. This seems like a fantastic book. If you're interested, please let me know and I will get a copy for our school library. This one is Mrs. S's, though she might lend it to you if you're very nice. So, thank you very much for listening. If you have any questions or if you'd like to chat about Poisoned by Jennifer Donnelly, please let me know. I'll see you next time. Bye.